begins the Circle Live after dark as we're down to four. We're down to four teams here at the Women's College World Series at Oklahoma City. I'm Eric Lopez alongside Victor Anderson. Got a special guest coming up in a few minutes, somebody that's used to these live shows, to help us break down the Final Four in the final Pac-12 game matchup. Stanford beats UCLA 3-1. Najee Kennedy dominating the Bruin lineup down the stretch. End up with 9 strikeouts. I can't remember the last time UCLA got a hit off of her. And the Cardinals are back in the Final Four for the second year in a row. They beat UCLA 3-1. Stanford will play Texas. Stanford must beat Texas twice to get to the Champs Series. And then Florida beats Alabama for the fourth time. They have eliminated Alabama in the Women's College World Series. They beat them here 6-4. So your Final Four now is Florida and Oklahoma in one semifinal, with Oklahoma needing just one win to get to the Champ Series. Florida needs 2. And then Stanford, Texas will be the night game on Monday night, with, again, Stanford needing 2 wins against Texas, Texas needing just 1. Victor, your thoughts?
Well, Eric, we were talking last night about how we did not have that memorable game so far in this year's Women's College World Series. It's either been a run rule game or a shutout. We got 2 classics on this Sunday afternoon/evening in Oklahoma City. And we knew it was going to be like that because we had 2 teams who played each other in the regular season, who were very familiar with one another. And both games lived up to the expectations. Some coaching moves, some pitching changes that got the timeline stirring, which Eric had some thoughts on. I'll ask him his thoughts about that in just a moment, especially with our guest, Coach Trout, when she joins us shortly.
We'll talk some moves later on, but you're right. This is a historic day. UCLA Stanford representing the last 2 standing in the Pac-12 for softball, sport that the conference defined. And it's Stanford that goes on top after being swept by UCLA during the regular season at Stanford. They meet again, and Stanford comes out on top in the final Pac-12 game, as we know. For those that don't know, Stanford's going to the ACC, UCLA's going to the Big Ten. And at least for now, Stanford is the last team standing from the Pac-12, and with the possibility of trying to bring one more national title to the Conference of Champions.
Yep, and it's fitting, Eric, that in this final matchup, it was played not as late as we thought it would be, but we got some Pac-12 after dark, only fitting. And it was the pitching of Kennedy, who once again showed you why, as you have talked about so many times, both live and on our podcast, that she is the best softball player in the world right now. And UCLA, she only made one mistake. She only made one mistake when she gave it the home run. After that, Stanford scrapped and pulled together enough runs to give her some leeway. UCLA did get a couple on in the top of the 7th to make things interesting. But Kennedy shuts the door, and Stanford wins their 5th straight elimination game.
Wow. Yeah.
This postseason, and find themselves needing to win a 6th and a 7th if they want to get to the Champ Series starting Wednesday night.
Of course, we had a great crew in Oklahoma City. They're covering this post-game going on right now as well. Should be interesting to see what both sides have to say there. And then, of course, Florida, Alabama. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can see the post-game there. Patrick Murphy addressing the questions that Victor brought up early about why he made the pitching changes. We'll get to that a bit later on the show on that, but we're going to be joined by a special guest here momentarily, which I'm curious to see her thoughts just on the 2 games in general.
Yes,
here momentarily, Vic. And but you're right. Pretty quick to get these games done by 11 o'clock after the weather delay. I mean, you and I were thinking, boy, I don't know. Florida, Alabama got pushed to a 6 o'clock Eastern start time. But I give credit to the World Series. They just decided to play basically like a doubleheader. They played the Florida, Alabama game. Then following that, like 30, 40 minutes afterwards, Stanford, UCLA. I think that was a smart play. I think it helped a lot. And as a result, we got a pretty reasonable 2 good games out of it. And I agree with you. I think today was probably the best day overall to date of the World Series. Considering I thought the two games were really good. Florida, Alabama was back and forth, very dramatic with that rivalry. And of course, UCLA, Stanford there. Again, Oklahoma, Florida is at noon. Texas, Stanford will be at 7. Which team do you give a chance, Vic, to make it interesting on Monday here and perhaps spoil Oklahoma, Texas champ series? Do you give Stanford or Florida the better chance here?
If I had to pick one, I have to pick Stanford simply because they have Kennedy, the best pitcher in the world right now. But then we talked about this, Eric, last night. They're going to have to throw their number 2s. That's Ava Brown for Florida and Reagan for Stanford. They need to throw in some point if they want to win those 2 games to get themselves to the championship series. That's why I give Stanford the edge. But the way Oklahoma and Texas have been clicking on all cylinders, really since the start of the NCAA tournament. In Oklahoma's case, this started when the Big 12 tournament, when they beat Texas to win the Big 12 title. It's been a collision course to those 2, meaning one final time in Oklahoma City for the champ series. And I don't think either Florida or Stanford are going to force it if necessary. And it's going to be Texas.
So you're saying no if necessary. That's bold.
No.
Bold.
Texas's offense has clicked. They have hit another gear in Oklahoma City. The pitching has been solid. And Oklahoma is Oklahoma. And I wouldn't be surprised if Kelly Maxwell gets to start on Monday and shuts the door on Florida early on.
All right, folks in the comments there, do you agree with Victor? Will there be no if necessary? Will it be as short as simple? 2 games on Monday. Send your comments and questions throughout the show. We'll try to get to some of them as we go on that situation. Wow, that's a very confident. I don't know. I feel like we're going to have an if necessary somewhere.
We will save your predictions for the end of the
later
season.
All right, fair enough. All right, fair enough. We'll get your comments and questions here momentarily. There, of course, Florida and Oklahoma there, and Texas. We're waiting on Coach Trout to join us.
Matter of fact, she is ready to go, sir.
Oh, there she is, ladies and gentlemen, joining us. She's become a regular doing our live shows because she's a very good person.
She's a friend of the podcast.
That's right. She's the associate head coach at Illinois. Helped lead Illinois to 4 NCAA tournaments. Of course, has played in the big stage in the World Series for Georgia back in 2010, as a matter of fact, if they had the Gold Glove Awards back then, she would have had an award, ladies and gentlemen. I speak back to Laura Trout. How you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
I'm doing good. Let's kind of give me some quick thoughts just with the game we just saw. UCLA, Stanford. You faced UCLA earlier this year at Mary Nutter. In fact, I called that game. So you know what it's like, how tough it is to prepare against UCLA. But yet Najee Kennedy was able to shut down this offense. What stood out to you as far as what Stanford was able to do to UCLA? Not just with Najee, you expect that. But I thought Stanford's offense against Terry and Tinsley jumping in there with 3 runs looked pretty good. What stood out to you?
I'll start with UCLA's offense. I believe they go as Maya Brady goes, and I think that started yesterday. I think she got a little cold yesterday. And sometimes as a hitter, it just carries on. She had a tough matchup yesterday, and I think, now you're going to go face one of the best pitchers in the world. And I think that kind of slowed UCLA's offense. The momentum that she brings, and then I think Stanford's offense, they can be sneaky. They can be sneaky, powerful. They can, once they get some things going, they go in bunches. And I thought they had the momentum and they rode it. So, and plus just for UCLA, it's tough to beat somebody 4 times. I think the sweep was a big deal, not even that long ago. But now you gotta beat them the 4th time, and I think that's tough.
Yeah, Brady went hitless yesterday and tonight. And you're right, there's always that hitter that teams look at, and it's like, if that player goes, that offense clicks when they're not hitting. It seems like the rest of the team struggles. Is that right? It seems like every offense, you've built so many offenses. No matter how much you talk about depth and balance, there's always that one or two hitters that seems to set the tone either positively or negatively for each team. And Maya Brady's certainly one of those at UCLA.
Absolutely, and I also have this theory that when you get to the World Series or even just late in postseason, your 7, 8, 9 hitters are they're really important because usually you have the best hitters figured out. I mean, they're going to do what they do. You pitch around them, but if your 79 hitters are cooking, and I think Stanford's 79 hitters tonight, is that correct? They had quite a night.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that, if they can keep that going, with as far as Kennedy can go in the circle, I think they have a chance as anybody. I think Texas is going to be rested. They're going to be deep. They got any number of viable arms in the circle. So it'll be interesting.
You were part of that Georgia team 2010. I think you finished third, I want to say. You made a deep run, did you not, that year?
We lost to UCLA, who won.
It won the whole time, Megan Lagan Fielding Company. What's the key to make a run at this point in the tournament? Either, in Stanford's case, they're coming out of the loser's draw side, dropping that first game to Texas. And then you've got a team like Florida, who's a young team. They won that first game against Oak State, but then got absolutely run-ruled by Texas, got ambushed, but was able to put that behind them and eliminate Alabama today. What do you speak of coming back from those two teams? Where are they coming from right now?
Well, I think Florida's young, and that's the key. They're young in the circle. I mean, early in the season, such an interesting game they played against Florida State, where, I mean, 1 million runs were scored. And I think Rock stayed in the whole time.
Very old school, staying on one pitcher.
But I also think that, I mean, she's young, so she has so much to learn. I think the experience that you think from them, maybe even from just that game, can carry. If they want to beat Oklahoma twice, it's gonna be some of that. But it's also gonna be, your ace or your people have to do what they do, but you're also gonna have a surprise somewhere. Somebody's gonna have to step up, and carry a little bit of the load. So, and they have young arms. I think they have somebody could do it, but I think same thing goes for Stanford. Kennedy's there. How far can she go? She's going to go obviously as far as she can, but somebody's going to have to step up. Somebody else is going to have to step up. And that's the key to winning, and beating either Oklahoma or Texas twice is a surprise. And I think if we're talking about tonight, Florida-Bama, I mean, that's a classic clash of the SEC Blue Bloods. The only two national champions in the SEC, if I'm correct, I guess until next year.
Well, I mean, there's been a couple teams that have kind of broken through, won an SEC conference title since, but they are the Blue Bloods, like you said. Yeah. It's the fourth time that Florida has eliminated Alabama in the World Series. They did it in 2009, did it in 2011, did it, of course, in the Champ Series in 2014, and did it again today. What did you think was the difference in that back and forth game earlier between Florida and Alabama?
I mean, I think you have two teams where they've had good outings in the circle, but it came down to, the offense, and Florida's had the best offense between the two all year. I think, you have 4 All-Americans on their in their lineup. I saw Tim shook it up a little bit, and just move some All-Americans around, see what happens.
Good problem to have. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. So I think that's what it came down to, and Bama's always going to fight. They're always going to be a team that can find the runs that they need. They're obviously super talented, but I think it just came down to Florida had a little bit more in their lineup.
Well, you mentioned it. Kendra Falby got dropped down in the order. Tim Walton said in the press conference that it was her idea to drop down because she's been hitless, has the longest drought without a hit in her career. She, I guess, suggested that to the coaching staff, and they do that. As a coach, how much feedback do you get from players when they're saying, hey, maybe you drop me in the order or something, or somebody's struggling like that, and tweaking the line? What goes behind decisions to tweak the lineup like you mentioned, like Tim did? Because Florida had not really done much offensively against Kilfoyle and against Mac Morgan, got shut down. And Patrick Murphy even admitted in the postgame, one of the reasons why he made the moves he did on pitching-wise was because Florida had struggled against off-speed and the drop ball the first two nights of the World Series.
Florida and drop balls usually that's kind of, if you watch their struggles on the year, it's been drop balls. Falby, drop balls. I mean, she's, a speed slapper type kid. It's tough for them to hit drop balls. I mean, if a player, is struggling, you want to put them in the best place for success. But it's a little give and take, like what's best for the team. What's best for Florida's offense is Falby where she belongs, at the top. That's what's best for them. But also, she needs to have a little breathing room. So it's a little give and take. I think now, if that's what she needs, you give her that. But if I was a betting woman, which I'm not, the NCAA says don't bet on it, so we don't. They're not going to hold her down too much longer. I think she gets a hit tomorrow.
What makes a drop ball so hard to hit?
Well, I mean, this ball's tailing away from most bats, down and away. It's just trying to match plane, a heavy drop ball with some velocity. You have to get your body in position. You got to be able to drop the barrel. And if you drop the barrel, you got to make sure you stay through it. They're really hard to lift. If you're a team that lifts the ball, they tend to stay in the yard. But I mean, drop ball pitchers are they keep the ball in the yard. They're meant to get their defense, playing. So it's a little bit of that. But I mean, in our little group chat, we were kind of joking around. Francesca Nea she always had that rise ball bat that used to mash rise balls. So they mash rise balls.
Boy, so you could tell that she's made a difference, don't you? You could tell based on that.
Oh yeah, just mentality wise too. I mean, they're always going to be a super talented team, but their arms have carried them for how many of the last years. I think there was some absurd record that they just broke this year from the 2010 team or 2011 team or something like that, like Megan Bush's record or something like that.
Yeah, Megan Bush's single season RBI record was broken tonight by Jocelyn Erickson on that 3-run homer. She now has the most single season RBIs for any Gator this year. And it's interesting because Tim Walton has compared this team to that 2011 Florida team that Megan Bush was on, ironically enough.
That team could mash. That team, when we played defense against them, we had our heels at the back of the grass or back of the infield on the grass. They swung it, and I mean, I would say I would agree. I think that I haven't seen a Florida offense this, with this much power since them. So
you brought up Francesca, and let's bring up Kayla Bro because both of them in their first year as assistants, both coming over from the broadcast booth. And it was interesting. You just pointed out that you could tell that Fran's fingerprints there on how Florida has been hitting the rise ball this year. What do you make of the two of them getting into coaching after spending, especially Kayla and Fran? They both have been doing broadcasting for a while. Clearly, Fran wanted to get away from me, so clearly that was a smart move. That just stay away from me and you get to the World Series. But what have you made from the two of them? Because I kind of saw Alabama going to more small ball in the postseason, and I felt like that had Caleb Bro written all over. What was your thoughts on the two of them and their impact on the respective teams?
I mean, I think we saw what a lot of teams have to start doing in postseason is you're starting to face, as you get further and further, you're facing the best of the best of the best arms. You're not going to string together, a bunch of home runs and all, you got to put some stuff together, and you got to have some small ball. You got to find some runs. Bama's always done that really well. I thought, if they needed 3 runs, they found them. Florida too. But I mean, I do think it's a little bit of that is you're facing some of the best pitchers. So you got to kind of figure some things out. And just, put the ball in play, make people make mistakes, move runners over. And I really think, the Caleb Bro impact that you see that a little bit, you see them, all right, we need to hit behind the runner, gotta move the runner, things like that, which is what she was always really, really good at.
No doubt. We're speaking with Laura Trout, associate head coach at Illinois, former Georgia Bulldog. By the way, Victor, we got to congratulate her. Her alma mater baseball team just advanced to the Super Regionals for the first time since 2008. She was stressed out. I was texting her and hey, you're doing all right. Next thing you know, she's got like split screen. She's got the softball and she's got the baseball regionals. Unfortunately, Victor and I's teams were eliminated abruptly today, respectively, on the baseball front. So we have nothing to say on the baseball front except congratulations on your alma mater.
It was close there for a little bit.
Can't. Out of all the way. Out of all the way. Never in doubt.
If it was any other team, man, it wouldn't even. I mean, but Georgia Tech at your own field, can't take that L.
No, it's intense. That got a little crazy there. What's been your overall thoughts so far of the 2024 Women's College World Series so far from the beginning to now? What has stood out to you?
Obviously some really good performances from young people, some freshmen and sophomores. So, our game is in really good hands. And obviously it shows that, the game doesn't know any age either. So that's been really fun to see. It's just, just some big performances from some freshmen. Obviously Rothrock going out there, just putting her team on her back that's a lot for a freshman to do in front of those crowds. But she just goes out there. I would say, Maya Brady, tough last few at-bats, did not expect that. Just still have a heck of a career, though. So many shining World Series performances, but, would have loved to seen her kind of go out on top. What else?
0 for 7, by the way. 0 for 7 for Brady in the last 2 games there, plus there, according to Rob from Canada, their loyal fan there. That's tough. But that happens, right, in the World Series. You're playing the best of the best.
Especially when you got Kelly Maxwell and Najee Kennedy, you have to play consecutive days in less than 20, just over 24 hours.
And people don't understand, the lefty-lefty matchup of Maxwell, who just, I don't know. I saw her throw the best game I've seen her throw last night.
Yes.
Just dicing them up. Tough lefty-lefty matchups. And then now you're going to go face a pitcher who's almost complete opposite. Just power right past you. With not a lot of time to prepare. The time between the 2 games, just not a lot of time to prepare and just make those adjustments. I don't know if people understand how hard that is. Just 2 of some of the best pitchers, right, back to back. So, overall, aside from a couple run rules, I think that's been, it's been pretty well pitched. I think what you see too sometimes is sometimes the game just gets away from you. I don't think what happened to Florida yesterday really speaks of it can just get out of hand real quick. Duke had a first time appearance. Their first game was close, and then
a little bit, and then OU decided OU things.
Oh yeah, OU went OU.
If you just watch the final score, though, I thought it didn't really tell the story. I thought they were in it for a little bit, and then it just went off the rails. But it's hard for me not to see an OU Texas championship. But crazier things have happened. And
see, you're a veteran at this show. You knew exactly what I was going to ask you, which was about Oklahoma and Texas, and you just stole my thunder. So you believe – I've said since March, late February, March, because I saw Texas live back in Clearwater then when they played UCF. I thought OU and Texas have been the 2 best teams all year, and I felt like they're in a collision course. They had a great regular season series matchup in Austin. I saw them up close in the Big 12 title game. I felt that we're headed for that collision. Sounds like you believe the same thing here. Do you believe that's where we're headed, or you think Stanford or Florida can crash the party here, or at least if not, win twice, make it interesting and force it if necessary?
I think when you have Kennedy in the circle, anything can happen. She could strike out double digits easy. But we saw what LSU did to her. The first game, they saw her. What are you going to get? And I think 99 times out of 100, you're going to get a pitcher that has double-digit strikeouts, and I think that gives their team a chance, no matter what. Your team has a chance when you have a pitcher like her in the circle. I think their offense is getting a little confidence, and I think them matched up with Texas is a good matchup because They've played each other 3 or 4 times already.
They have played 3 times. This will be their 4th, yeah.
So,
in fact, I saw one of them. I saw them. They played in Clearwater. Now, Kennedy didn't pitch in that game.
Oh, yeah.
But she pitched the one in Austin that they won. And, of course, they pitched, obviously, on Thursday night. But, yes, this will be the 4th time, which, as a coach, how much complicated does that make it that you've played this team a lot of times? I know in asking coaches in the media availability, they kind of downplay it because they're like, hey, look, with the technology today, you can get film on any team. So it really doesn't matter if you played them once or 3. But then I've heard players and coaches saying, no, that does make a difference because they know your tendencies better. How big of a factor is that?
It comes down to execution at that point. Like, you've seen Kennedy a couple times now. Again, I'm not saying that makes it any easier, but it helps, and the same goes for, them seeing Texas. There's not a lot of mystery there. You're familiar with each other, kind of like you saw UCLA and Stanford today. Even Alabama and Florida, there's familiarity there. So it just really comes down to, some moments, who's going to execute, who's going to make their pitches, who's going to have a better game plan at the plate, and then execute that game plan. That's really what it comes down to. Not a lot of secrets, not a lot of surprises, not a lot of tricks up your sleeve. Just, comes down to getting it done when it matters.
Do you like this new format? Do you wish they would have had this format back in 20? Yeah, I knew it. You wish they had this format back in 2010. You did not have this luxury.
No.
Back then.
No, there was a grind. If you won, you just grab some snacks and sunscreen because you're getting ready for the next game.
Because you had to go through a gauntlet that year, right? Didn't you have to get through Washington that year to get back at UCLA or something like that?
So we opened with Washington, and it was obviously, there's always delays. So we were the last game. We were the midnight special that night. I remember getting IHOP at it was the only place open as a team and at 1 a.m. And that was when the winners played the next day. So, you win, you beat the defending national champions, opening night, you're, the highest of highs. And then you got to turn around and play, conference rival in Tennessee, less than 24 hours from then. So we played Thursday, Friday, lost to Tennessee Friday, and then we had to play Saturday, 1 game, just the 1 game. And then we had to play Sunday. So we played 4 days in a row.
Who did you eliminate on Saturday that year? Was it
Florida
Washington again? Oh, it was Florida.
Florida 3-2.
Oh, you ended Fran's career. Oh, okay. I forgot about that. That's why she's always cringed there when you texted us in the booth. You're like, oh Lord, it's like the initial shock, like, oh, that one that ended my career.
Well, yeah. Fun fact. Before I got to Georgia, they lost to Florida all the time. I've never lost to Florida personally.
Oh,
never.
There you go. I like that. She brings that up. She had that. She's got the stat down. Oh, that was a loaded World Series. Not that they're never loaded, but that is insane. Like Danielle Laurie was the best player in the world. She was the reigning national champion. I think she won National Player of the Year at that time.
She did. Yeah.
But your team was loaded too, offensively. That was man, that's crazy.
Nikki. No, that was the year before with Michigan. No, but that was the UCLA team that was pretty loaded.
Yeah.
Tennessee.
They won the national title. Langenfield there. You had Kinsey Fowler. Arizona was in that field. I mean, woo.
Tennessee with the Ivy Renfro.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Renfro Tennessee team. Yeah, very good Tennessee team.
Hawaii made it that year.
Yeah, that was when Hawaii beat Alabama, walked them off in Tuscaloosa to get the Supers.
Yeah, it was a crazy year.
Are you going to miss, as a fan, the SEC Pac-12 match? Because that was a big deal when you played. Playing the Pac-12, then that rivalry in the conference, and that's no longer it's in play. Yeah. I know, that it's going to be different now next year.
Oh yeah, you go to Mary Nutter, and you have these early season matchups, and you beat them or they beat you, and you're like, see you in the World Series, and so I mean, it's tough. Gonna miss that.
Yeah. It is going to be weird. Vic, it's going to be weird. Vic's going to have to correct me so many times and edit this show a lot next year when I talk about a team and I mention the wrong conference. It's going to be
Eric, what we're going to do is that when all of these moves to new conferences are made official on July the 1st, we're going to do a live show to let everyone know what conferences the teams are currently in right now. So that way you have a template, and that way, if you have any questions, refer to the template on our show on July the 1st.
Or make Eric a Waffle House menu like the offensive coordinators in football have.
Just our head coach UCF, Coach Trout, loves Waffle House, so I think we can make that happen.
Listen, you guys can do all that. It's not going to help me. Like, I know I'm just going to apologize in advance because I'm going to text Coach next year. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And she's going to tell me, hey, we're prepping for.
He'll have his play sheet like this.
And she's going to be like, hey, we're getting ready for Washington or Oregon or UCLA, whoever they're playing. I'm like, oh, non-conference? And they're like, no.
Yeah, non-conference, yes.
Oh, my bad.
And remember, Arizona State conference games next year, Oklahoma, Texas non-conference games next year. After that, you're on your own.
Well, let me ask you that about next year. The SEC is going to go to 15. Has that wrapped around your mind as somebody who played in the SEC that Oklahoma and Texas will be a part of that next year?
I mean, we've had enough time. It's been like slow release to kind of start to accept it. I think it's going to be really good for our sport that Oklahoma gets to play SEC every weekend. Not anything against the Big 12 or anything. I think it's just a different gauntlet. And I'm talking about all sports.
Facts.
All sports, specifically
all
football.
Sports.
But softball wise, I think it'll be really good. Just so that, all the locations in the Southeast will, if they host Oklahoma, I mean, that's going to be great. Not that SEC has any attendance problems. I just think it kind of brings that show out of the heartland. Not that they don't go places, but they do play a lot of games at that stadium. And we were just talking about this too, how it's going to be really good to bring, like UCLA into our part of the country, bring some Midwest kids to the Pacific Northwest. I mean, there's been a lot of, I think, negative press, and there's some tough things about all these conference realignments and things like that. But I choose to look at the bright side. I think you're going to see some kids that have never seen the beach before get to go to California.
True. Well, no, you make a great point, because I kind of went through this year doing UCF games. Oklahoma and Texas so happened to come to UCF, both. And it packed the place at the complex. Like, it was an incredible atmosphere. And I do think there is that aspect, like Patrick Murphy was talking about, how he's kind of spilled the beans that I guess they're going to host Oklahoma next year at Roadhouse. I know it's shock. Tim Walton mentioned that I guess they're scheduled to host Oklahoma. So you are going to get some freshness. There's some unique places you get to go, which will make it unique. And, and Kevin Brown on the telecast talked about the popularity of the sport is bigger than ever before. So if anything, it's going to create more, I got to go see. This is historic for the first time. There is that added energy. There's always you're right. There's a lot of focus on the negatives and so forth, but there are positives to this. And you just brought up a couple of the examples there. Yeah.
And I think you'll see almost every weekend, and the SEC is going to be like a super regional atmosphere. Especially with the Texas in town or Oklahoma in town. I mean, and the best part about the SEC is anybody can win on any day. And, if you look at their top to bottom rankings, whoever finishes last in the SEC probably beat some of those top teams, once or twice or things like that. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, and I think the Big Ten's going to benefit from the extra eyeballs you're going to get with the UCLAs, the Washington, and the Oregons coming into that league. There's going to be more eyeballs and more interest, I think, in the league just from people that maybe haven't followed the Big Ten because of those brands itself. That's, again, an example of the positives that I think could come from all of these movement there, which is good, because that means I get to see you more on TV. Really, it's what I care about personally.
I also think I spent my whole life until I took this job in Illinois in the Southeast, playing softball where it was warm. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how those West Coast teams come and see how we get to play in April. Sometimes there's some snow flurries.
I've heard.
It just, you got to dig deep and find that toughness.
Well, I was going to say maybe the big thing is going to be the clothing. We're going to find out where their winter clothing looks like, which is a difference.
Yeah, it's yeah, I'm not going to say it's something you ever get used to, but it's fun. We call it Big Ten weather for a reason.
Yeah.
I like that. That's very good. We'll let you go on this. What are you looking forward to the rest of this tournament? Obviously, you think Oklahoma and Texas will get through. What are you looking forward to here the rest of the week that you're kind of keeping your eye on, that you're curious to see what's gonna happen here at the conclusion of this event?
I would like to see Oklahoma taken to the wire. I think that's best for our sport, is when it is, just a bunch of one-run games that everybody's locked in on. I was it last year where we were playing on ABC and they were run roll games. No, we need close games. We need, toe-to-toe pitchers duels with the big hit coming into play. Maybe even a 9-8 game. Just some heavyweight fights. That's what I would like to see. Just some, if offense is the name of the game, I would like to see the teams trade some blows. If it's a pitcher's duel, then, I'm there for that, but I want to see some close games. And I think we got 4 teams to do that. I think we got 4 teams left that are going to give us some close games, some excitement for our sport. Keep some eyes on it. Nobody wants to, like I said, if we're playing on ABC, and random fancies, it's 10-0. Nobody wants to watch that. So, I would like to see if games, but if not,
you want a game 3. You want a game 3 champ series. You want the series to go 3, right?
I want 3-game champ series. I want 2 games, double. I want Stanford to take it to 2 tomorrow. I want Florida to take it to 2. I want more softball.
You want me and Vic to work more long hours. I got you.
Yep.
I understand. Oh, you notice Vic mentioned 9-8 game. That's the offensive side of her right there. 9-8.
Hey, I would not expect anything less.
Fair enough.
Hey, I'm down for a pitcher's duel.
You are from time to time.
Yeah, I'm down.
You're not. Fair enough.
I will give a shout out to some of the defensive outfield plays we've seen this tournament.
It's been good. The outfield,
yes.
Yeah. That has been some fun stuff to watch right there. So I'm hoping for some more solid defense, just some heavyweight fights.
I agree. That should be a lot of fun. I wish they had the gold. Can we get a retroactive? Give her a Gold Glove, Vic? Can we She would have won the Gold Glove at short, like 20.
Hey, that's above my pay grade, sir. You're talking to the wrong person who could make that happen.
Listen, I watched her. You may not even remember this. You played UCF in Claremont, 2010, when it was like 33 degrees. I was outside.
Yeah.
And I told Goler, our buddy Goler, she hit like this home run that never landed. It was the only time I was happy UCF got run ruled by Georgia, just so we could get back in the room. I was inside. That was brutal. But this guy was
Coach, Coach, I don't know if you're aware of this. Anything below 65 degrees, Eric is miserable, especially when he's outdoors.
But what's crazy is she's making plays routinely in the infield. She was the only one not bothered by it. She was like, whatever.
I don't know how, because I used to be like Eric.
You probably had a good poker face. You're like a poker face, and you're tougher than me. That's why you've accomplished what you've accomplished.
I remember it would be like a high school game in South Carolina, and it'd be like 60 degrees, and I was like, I cannot wait for this game to get over so I can put my sweatshirt back.
I hear you.
60 degrees. That is a summer day here.
Summer day there, yes. But you've handled it very well, and you've been very successful. That's Laura Trout, associate head coach at Illinois. Has been a World Series participant as a player. Again, we had a Golden Glove Awards back in 2010. She wins that award. At least I think she should have. Thank you so much for staying up with us and giving some analysis. I always enjoy having you on every year to talk about softball and just everything. You always get great thoughts and analysis. So thanks for always helping us out.
Appreciate you guys having me. Happy to be on whenever.
Thanks, buddy. Take it easy.
See ya.
All right. That is Laura Trout, associate head coach Illinois. Join us on In the Circle live after dark here on D1 softball. Always a play. Always fun. I
always great to have her on the show. Always great to have her on.
She's so awesome. It's true, though. That was freezing freaking cold. I
33 degrees.
yeah, it was brutal.
Yeek.
Miserable. I told you. I was
just thinking about those conditions.
When Georgia run ruled them, I'm like, let's get out of here.
It's like, thank you, Lord.
We got our split. They upset UCF beat Tennessee. We're good. We're good. All right. Have we heard from our friends? And is everybody okay? Do we know?
I have not heard any messages from Jenna Becerra or Shelly Carlin as of yet. So, needless to say, they will not be joining us this evening, sir. Now, yesterday we said that Caitlin Arnold was supposed to be joining us tonight, but due to the lateness of the games, she will not be joining us. However, she will be joining us on our podcast. Where
at some point. Well, yeah,
at some point.
We'll figure all that out. They also might be headed towards, because obviously last night when they joined us from the stadium, this time it's a little later at Oklahoma City.
Little late, you know.
Or may not be speaking terms. I mean, it could go either way.
It's understandable.
All right, let's get into the Florida-Alabama game a little bit.
Yes.
And you brought it up, the Murphy decisions for the pitching things. Started Beaver, brought in Brisky, pulled Brisky to bring in Johnson.
And then Johnson gave up the 3-run bomb to Erickson that for all intents and purposes gave Florida the game.
Well, that was significant because Alabama scored 2 runs and made it 6-4 in that 6th inning. You're thinking to yourself there. So you brought it up. Your thoughts on it as you saw it as it was playing out?
I was kind of surprised by it, to be perfectly honest with you, but Patrick Murphy have faith that his team can kind of figure out Florida and kind of hold things down until they can scrap together some runs and hopefully put Beaver in to close the door late. But the Erickson home run changed the entire tenor of that strategy, because now you're battling 6-2 with an offense that they have had like one real big inning. That was a 9-run inning versus Southeastern Louisiana in the regional final a few weeks ago in Tuscaloosa, but nothing of significance since then. Big Alabama credit. Clawed their way back to 6-4, but couldn't get anything more against Rock to close the door. And another successful season for Alabama, a team that not many people, let's be honest, none of us gave them a chance to make it past Tennessee in supers. And Patrick Murphy once again found a way, and he's got a lot of his team back. Already added a bat in the transfer portal. They'll be joining Alabama next year, and credit to Florida. Congratulations, and your reward will be taking on Kelly Maxwell in Oklahoma tomorrow at high noon.
Yeah. I didn't like the move. Now, I was at the presser. He explained why he made the move, which is he brought Johnson in because of the matchup with Erickson, because of the changeup and the speed. And that's fine. I think you're overcoaching it at that point. I will never forget, Vic, because for those that may not be aware, Victor's actually been around softball way longer than I have. And I remember in 2005, Victor was calling UCF games at the time. They made this run to the ASUN tournament. They made the run in the regionals. They went 1 and 2. And I was, distant, and I would talk to him after games and things like that. And back then, Lindsey Enders threw almost basically every game, right? Every game.
Yeah.
And I remember I would ask you, why is Coach Gillespie throwing Lindsey Enders this much when she hasn't had rest? And I'll never. Do you remember what you gave me the comment about? Do you remember the comment, the statement you gave me? Why she kept throwing?
I believe the statement was, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, she's gonna throw Lindsey Enders until her arm freaking falls off. Something along those lines.
Something along those lines, a little more different language.
Exactly. That's why I say paraphrasing.
But you also emphasize the fact the reason for that is if you're going to go down
with your best.
And ever since you said that, I've been a believer in that. You go out with your best. And I don't think Alabama did. To me, Caleb Beaver was your best pitcher. Just go with her. And, I understand, in today's day and age, it's a matchup. They've seen her a million times. You look at the other dugout. Like I mentioned with Coach Trout. Tim Walton's old school. Keegan Rothrock gives us our best chance. I don't care that Alabama's seen her 100 times. I know she's, laboring a little bit in the 6. I'm going to go with her. I got no choice. That's my best option.
I have no choice.
If I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose with Keegan Rothrock in this game. And what happened? She got out of that 6th inning jam, came back in and shut the door in the 7th. To me, you go with Beaver. And I agree with Danielle Laurie. Okay, so you bring in Brisky, who I like the move that they have used Brisky in this World Series, because I think Brisky's your future next year. And if you want to get back here, that could be a big key cog. But I thought Danielle Laurie on the telecast said it best. If you're going to pull Brisky, you bring back Beaver. That's what I would have done. Instead, he goes to Johnson, who hadn't pitched in whatever. That's a tough.
Had not pitched since the Auburn series. Hadn't pitched since Auburn, May 5th.
That is a big ask against one of the best hitters in the sport in Jocelyn Erickson, and you paid the price. You paid the price.
Yep.
I just don't agree with that. I don't agree with that, Vic. Go out with your best if you can. That's my thoughts on that. It is what it is. But that's why Tim Walton now is back in the Final Four here. And Florida's now eliminated Alabama 4 times in the World Series, as I mentioned. He's had his number at the World Series. He's had his number. And I want to say this, regardless of what happens tomorrow, I made the jokes. I joke a lot. Hey, it means more to get run rule, but OU. Look, they're going to have a tough order against Oklahoma tomorrow. I don't care what happens on Monday, whether Florida wins a game, maybe they win, or they get smoked by Oklahoma. This has been an amazing, successful year for Florida. I think they're ahead of schedule.
Yep.
And I'm scared to death of what they're going to look like when he adds some depth. Okay, he doesn't have the pitching depth.
That's the key.
Now, he does lose Skylar Wallace.
He does lose Skylar Wallace. He does have Obis. He does have Erickson. Does have Colby.
They're going to add.
And they're going to add. And Eric, here's the scary thing about this. Florida was the first team to make it to the Women's College World Series with 0 returning innings from the previous season since Washington in 2009, where they won the whole thing.
Yeah.
Think about that, folks. Yeah. And you add Francesca Anea to the staff from the broadcast booth, and it makes what Florida has done even more remarkable.
Might be maybe one of his best jobs at Florida.
Oh, I think so. This year, and when they made it to the World Series in 22, when they run rule Virginia Tech in Blacksburg and Supers to get there, those 2 seasons are probably Tim Walton's best coaching job that he's had in Gainesville.
Yeah, I mean, Mark brings up a good point in the chat. I mean, UCLA and Florida, with the lack of pitching experience to get this far, is pretty impressive by both of those coaching staffs. I think Kelly Inouye-Perez done a great job herself at UCLA. In fact, if you ask me right now, Victor, Coach of the Year, I would be debating between Tim Walton and Kelly Inouye-Perez for National Coach of the Year. I know they don't. It's weird. I mean, we talk so much about the awards. Why don't they split the awards, player and pitcher and all that? I don't really understand why they don't just do a national, like they do these region Coach of the Year, staffs of the year, and all that. Like, I would go Walton or Inouye-Perez for National Coach of the Year for what the job they've done. And I just think what he's done, and to kind of have his team ready to play after absolutely getting annihilated by
Texas.
Texas.
The key. Yes.
And just in a short turnaround, which I talked about. Now they got, a little bit of a weather that pushed it back, but impressive. I think he's done an impressive job. And when you bring up the best head coaches in the sport, he has to be in the top tier easily.
Oh, of course.
Well, I think some people take it for granted. And I again, this guy's, there's a reason he's getting inducted into the NFCA Hall of Fame this December.
Yes.
It's done a job.
And richly deserved.
Amen. Let's see here. We got, some Mark. I'm the biggest Kenny Gajewski fan too, by the way. Coach of the Year, people, Gajewski. I think Gajewski's done a great job as well this year. No doubt. I think he's got a case as well.
First year hitting coach Vanessa Shippey Fletcher, first year pitching coach Carrie Eberle. You lose your ace, you lose a ton of talent, and you make it to Oklahoma City again. The ending was obviously a little bit of a kind of a Debbie Downer.
And that's the thing here. We're at D1 softball. I know we're going to do some coaching awards after the World Series, which I like. Kind of, you got to let it all play out. Because Fang Nine makes an interesting point. What if Texas wins the national title, the first ever? Does Mike White get the award? And that's kind of what hurts Gajewski's case. Is Mike White, I think, beat him out in the Big 12, although Texas had a more loaded team. But to get to this point, it's pretty darn good. I'm just saying, Tim has done a heck of a job. I think no experience pitching wise. At least Kenny Gajewski had Lexi Kilfoyle coming back and took it to a different level. But Kenny's right there. I mean, I think we said this. I forget which show we said this, Vic. I think when we said who is the best head coach in the sport that hasn't won a national title, the three names
Gajewski and Mike White
and Jessica Allister.
And
I think are the three best. Those three. And you can't go wrong with either of those three. And hey, what do you know? Mike White, Jessica Allister going at it on Monday night in the Final Four game there. So Alabama, it was interesting. Final thought on Alabama. They got to get some bats offensively. Now, Patrick Murphy said in the post game this was a transitional relationship year with the new hitting coach Harbor and the players. It was interesting seeing on social media some of the alums going back and forth on it. Whoa, hey,
we're staying out of this. We're staying out of this.
Well, but I've seen that all year from Alabama fans and alum. There's been a lot of back and forth stuff there that a little tense.
Okay.
Which, it's not just football over there.
No.
Okay,
no.
Let's just get that clear.
Not been a good week for the Alabama bat sports. They get eliminated by a team from the state of Florida back-to-back days.
That's true. That's correct. It's UCF Stetson. Stanford, UCLA. I get getting the win there. UCLA, a heck of a run. Shut down offensively. One run the last 2 days by Kelly Russo and Andre Kennedy. That's kind of the story there with the Bruins. They'll always wonder about those chances they had against Oklahoma on Saturday. That's why that winner's bracket game is so huge, right? You don't want to get stuck in this situation. And you knew when Stanford eliminated Oklahoma State, you're like, uh-oh, somebody's going to have to deal with her on Sunday night. And that's what happened to UCLA. Like you said, that's a big ask to go four times in a row to beat them. Oh, so now Stanford will play Texas. The big question, Victor, will be, and I think it's been brought up there, can you depend on her to go 14 innings if you have to? Or are you going to need some innings from Reagan Krause and the other Stanford pitchers to pull this off against Texas? I think Florida, they're going to have to use Ava Brown at some point to have any chance against Oklahoma. That's tough. Can Stanford depend on somebody else, or do you think they're going to just ride Najee as far as they can?
Well, that's the interesting thing.
That's the question, Mark Barnett. I'm stealing Mark Barnett's question, who did bring it up first.
I mean, that's why it's so difficult, because you're gonna, as I kind of alluded to in our open, you're gonna need Reagan Krause and Ava Brown if you want Stanford and Florida to at least get to an if necessary game. I have more faith in Krause to do it than Brown, but at the same time, we saw what happened when Krause got an opportunity to close things out in the regional versus Cal State Fullerton. They lit her up, forced a game 7, and had to put Kennedy back in the circle for Stanford to even advance the Supers.
Yeah. She has not pitched in the World Series either year, so that makes it interesting as well. That's the challenge. That's the challenge Stanford has. Texas has so many options they could throw.
Now, here's the other thing. Here's the thing to consider. When Stanford lost to Texas on Thursday night, Tegan Gavon got the ball, held Stanford to 1 hit, and struck out 8. Does Mike White go with Gavon again tomorrow night? Does he go with Mac Morgan, who nearly threw a perfect game, versus Florida, which got lost in the shuffle because Texas run ruled the Gators and jumped on them early?
Yeah.
They have Texas has options available to them and the luxury of needing to be defeated twice. So Mike White has options. Does he go with Morgan? Does he go with Gavon?
He's got a lot of options. Both The advantage that OU and Texas have is they both have options. Because I don't know. I'm really curious what Patty Gasso and Jen Roach would do. And of course, you got the Jen Roach and Tim Walton matchup again. That's been done before, so it's not nothing new, but a lot of familiarities. Obviously, Jocelyn Erickson was asked about facing Oklahoma, as you would expect from the Oklahoma media. Everything Oklahoma media asks is about the Oklahoma centric. So that's just the way it is. God forbid you ask something else. And she handled it like a pro. To her credit, she said it's looking forward to it. It's a former teammate. Handled it like a pro. Tim asked the same thing. Same thing. I am curious if he goes Maxwell from the get-go, or do you start like Nicole May or Kirsten Deal, especially Deal lefty against some of those lefty Florida hitters, right? With Wallace and Eric, so
yes.
Both coaching staffs, Texas and Oklahoma, have some interesting decisions to make. But I think I would not be, let's be real, we're not going to be surprised. Even if they don't start, you'll see Kavan or Maxwell available if needed to close it out, right?
Yes.
Like I think that's, we'll see how that goes. But I think it'll be Deal or Maxwell to go for Oklahoma, with possibly Nicole May available to close it out against Florida. That's my guess. And then Texas, I'm going to say they go Gutierrez in game one.
Ooh.
She hasn't thrown yet. She hasn't thrown yet in the World Series. You have a game in hand. You got Estelle Check available too, by the way.
Who helped pitch Texas to get to the Champ Series in 22 versus Oklahoma.
And then you've got Kavan and Morgan ready to go in the bullpen if you need to. You know what I mean? Like they got a lot of options to go there. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Should be a lot of fun. Oklahoma, Florida. So you're saying no if necessary games Monday night?
No, no ifs will be necessary tomorrow.
I think there's going to be one. I think Stanford's going to. I think Stanford forces one. Stanford forces one. I think OU finishes it off.
All right, so let's pose this question to those of you in the chat. Which team is the most likely to force an if necessary game tomorrow? Stanford, Florida, both, or neither? Because I'm interested, because based on the conversation that I'm seeing in the chat, a lot of people agree with you, Eric, that Stanford has the best chance to.
Well, they have the best pitcher. They're going to have the best pitcher in the sport. Now, the big question with her is she just threw tonight. She's going to throw Monday. Can she really throw 3 games in 2 days? Which is what may be asked of her. Who knows? It's a big ask. We'll see.
I think here's the other thing that helps out Stanford too. They're going to be closer to their normal turnaround time than Florida will be, because Florida had to play at 6. They got done at 8. They're going to be at the ballpark probably about 9:30, 10 Eastern time tomorrow for a 12 noon-ish first pitch versus Oklahoma. Stanford won't be on the field until at the earliest 5 p.m. Eastern time for their game versus Texas. So they have more time to kind of recover than Florida would. So let's see. Matt says Stanford. Rob from Canada says Stanford. Steve B says Florida. Mark says Florida if Oklahoma bats cool down.
That's a big
That's a big if. Carolyn Dean, big neither. So he agrees with me. Appreciate how great minds think alike here. Mark Barnett says.
I was going to say, a lot of people are agreeing with you these days. I'll tell you.
I mean, what can I say? I speak the truth and people start to listen.
That's true.
What can I say? It is what it is, sir. Now, you were teasing last night on our stream, which you can watch on our YouTube channel, by the way, about some potential news within the coaching carousel. I will give the floor to you, sir, to share.
Well, I think we'll say this. I think this week, be on the lookout. I expect some coaching news to be announced. I think head coaching hires will happen. I think everybody's looking at Auburn. In fact, Vic, the fact that Alabama just got, of course, eliminated Sunday, I would not be surprised if Auburn makes an announcement here early this week, maybe in the next couple of days, on who their next head coach is.
Interesting.
And what's fascinating about that Auburn job, there's been a handful of names that have been rumored about it. Some people have, and remember what I told you prior to the World Series started, but super that depending on when Auburn's, how long this goes. If it went long, it tells you they probably had somebody in mind that's coaching, and maybe that's the key here. Was there somebody that was coaching here in the World Series or that they have their eye on? And if so, if that person has been eliminated, they could be in play to be could be in play to be the new Auburn head coach. We'll see. I don't know who it is. I can tell you who it's not. It's not Heather Tarr. I know that rumor has been just running rampant. I get it because of everything that's happened in Washington, which, I'm not going to get into all that now. But, there's a lot of big moves there that's been going on at Washington. But I'm telling you, it's not her. But I understand why people think it's her, but it's not her. I don't think it's her. It's not Kenny Gajewski. That's another name that people have floated. Kenny, if you watch Kenny's presser at Oklahoma State at the end there after the loss to Stanford, that guy more than happy at Oklahoma State. I know Vic's like, give me this look like.
Here's my thing. Why would Kenny Gajewski leave a place where he's went to 5 straight Women's College World Series and he's going to be involved in getting another big name out of the portal because Oklahoma State, just like the other schools, have had impact players through the portal, especially pitchers, in this run that the Cowgirls have had. So why would he leave that situation?
I agree with you, but I'm just telling you what people have been speculating.
I know.
It's just the rumor monster. So I don't think it's those two. It's not those two. I mean, I'm really fascinated by this. And the reason why it's fascinating is I think Auburn's been working on this as we're talking. And they may have somebody in mind today, and they may offer that person the job tomorrow. And maybe that person says yes, or maybe that person uses that as leverage to get a better deal wherever they're at right now. We've seen that over and over again. And there's more and more head coaches that have agents. And I will bring up 2018. When I was at the World Series. Mm-hmm. Remember, Vic, you were back home.
I was. I remember the infamous press conference when Tim Walton's name got leaked about the Texas job, and Justin McLeod asked him the question. And then Tim Walton turned that around into a healthy extension and renovations to KSP. And needless to say, he's been pretty good ever since.
But what's funny then was that was the hot rumor, was Tim Walton to Texas. Tim Walton even supposedly told the ESPN in a meeting that Texas will change the landscape of financially of the head coaching job. Like and then
he was right.
He was right. But I will never forget because I left Oklahoma City on Wednesday because Florida State had just swept Washington. And I remember I had a layover in Houston. And when I got a great airport, many a times I've spent time there. I'm probably one of the most top 3 airports I've stayed. I've been cross paths many a time. And I land there and I get these messages about Florida's press release of Tim Walton's extension. I'm like, of course, it was brilliant play.
Leverage.
It was leverage. So that's why you got to be careful about some of this stuff, especially this time of year with the World Series. But there have been rumors that a head coach that just coached in the World Series is in that mix. Could be some assistants in the mix. I think we're gonna find out who the Auburn head coach is this week, and I think it's going to be a very, very relevant name that certainly will get people. Could start this domino that you keep asking me about, Vic. When is the domino going to start?
Yeah. So you're saying the Auburn hire is going to be that first domino to fall and starts that coaching carousel,
especially if they land one of their top targets. Yeah. Because I think they have, and to their credit, I think they have a plan A, plan B, and plan C kind of a list.
Right.
If they land the big plan A, let's say, or even a plan B, I think that'll definitely cause some dominoes.
Okay.
We'll see. Notre Dame and Ohio State is also in the process. Mm-hmm. That might go after the pending. It kind of feels like everybody's just waiting to see what Auburn does.
Yes.
And everybody, you know what I mean? Like sometimes that happens when
It's almost remember when the portal the coaching carousel got really jumping when Alistair left Minnesota to go to Stanford and how that domino effect went down.
Yeah.
I can see something similar depending on who Auburn hires.
It very well could. It could very well. No, Tim did not pay Justin to ask that question. Trust me, I was in that room when that question was asked. And when Tim's facial, trust me, that question was not it was not paid for. I'm not saying Tim was upset about the question. I'm just saying it was not a question. Trust me, that is not something I would recommend. That was not in. Trust me, that was a funny story.
And here's the other thing, Eric, to consider. In the last few years, and when we've covered the Women's College World Series in person or cover it virtually, there's always that one coaching job that suddenly pops open out of nowhere. I remember in 2021 when I went and I was in the press box getting ready for the games, and I hear the news that Lou Harris-Champer retired from Georgia.
You were there, man. Yeah,
there's always going to be that one job that pops up open that nobody saw coming. So,
and that's when and don't worry, Vic will announce when he is traveling to Chicago, because normally that happens.
If it happens when I'm traveling to Chicago for a third straight season,
what do you mean if? I think no, it's when it happens. It's not a question of if, when it happens. Come on now.
My goodness gracious. But if it does happen 3 years in a row, I'm literally going to question the true powers that I have in this sport.
Then everybody's going to be harassing you. When are you traveling? Because they want to know just to see when news hits.
Let me put it to you this way. I ain't letting you know when I travel to Chicago until I arrive in Chicago and I post up a tweet. And then watch what happens. 5 minutes later, I post a tweet and then the announcement hits. And I'll be like, okay, I'm done.
Something to keep in mind. If we stay on schedule Monday with the games, Tuesday's an off day. If you remember a couple of years ago, that's right the time frame when Tricia Ford was leaked out and was announced as the Texas A&M head coach.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I'm just saying, if you want to make the announcement, you want to make a splash,
you have a day available to do it.
That could be the day. I'm just saying. I'm not saying it will. Now, if it doesn't happen, if we haven't heard from Auburn, and let's say we're at game 2 of the Champ Series, then that makes it interesting. Makes you wonder if maybe that coach is somewhere in that Champ Series.
Potentially.
Who knows? That's the thing about these coaching things. They could come out in a lot of different directions. We'll be following that. Once the World Series ends, we're going to go full in-depth stuff on coaching carousels. We actually have a head coach that is at a new place that we will have on the show after the World Series.
Yes.
After the World Series.
We
still got a lot to come this week.
Yes, we do.
What are we allowed to announce? What are we allowed to say?
I don't
get in trouble.
I think we're allowed to say that. I think we're allowed to make this announcement. We are allowed to announce that after each game of the Champ Series starting Wednesday night, in the Circle Live, we'll be giving our post-game thoughts. We will have guests. We will give analysis. We will break down what we saw and get you ready for what's going to happen for game 2. And depending on what happens, possibly game 3. So we'll be live every night after the game in the Champ Series, 11 p.m.-ish. Follow us on Twitter/X to know when we'll be going live exactly. And based on some emails that I've received this evening, let's just say we may do something prior to the Champ Series. You'll have to wait and see what happens with that.
We will have a regular podcast for those that follow us on the podcast feed or subscribers. We will have a podcast prior to the Champ Series starting, probably Wednesday morning.
Yes.
Could be Vic will.
Let's put it this way. If the plan is to have a podcast Wednesday morning, who will be on the podcast and what we're talking about, it all depends on who's in the Champ Series.
Right, that's why we really can't say much because we don't know who's playing. See, back in the old schedule, it used to be that at this time we would be breaking down the Champ Series already because the semis would be done tonight. They changed the schedule. Whatever, it's cool. Everybody seems to like it. Cool with me. Not really the most podcast-friendly schedule.
No, it's not. But that's why we do. That's why we go. That's why we have In the Circle Live at the dark, because we make sure we give you the fans the content that you're wanting without having to wait 2 or 3 extra days to get it.
We will have a regular podcast this week, we're not on live Monday night. Is that correct?
No live show Monday night. We may, and I emphasize may, do something Tuesday night to preview the Champ Series.
Keep it on social media, folks, for all those details.
Yes.
We will make it on D1 softball as well. Some great stuff. Jenna and Paige Halstead are all there. Justin McLeod's there. Shelley Carr. Hopefully they're all getting along. I am worried.
Hopefully.
Worried.
Well,
we haven't heard from them. Are they okay? I'm worried. Like, you think there's some awkwardness?
We may have to send some text messages after we go off the air, Eric,
right,
to verify how they are doing.
That was an emotion. That's a tense game. I mean,
it was.
There's been times when me and Vic haven't spoken prior to recording a podcast because of certain sporting events breaking down. I mean, heck, it was kind of awkward earlier today with UCF Stetson baseball was going on there. It was awkward with the two of us there. I'm not gonna lie. I thought for a minute we wouldn't do the show based on how.
I mean, we were fine. We were fine. UCF baseball on a radio broadcast. Stetson didn't. So that's a whole nother subject for another day.
All right. Of course I can go there.
Yes.
But no, they got, in all seriousness, D1 softball has great coverage there. Jenna Becerra had a nice chat with, I don't know, Jessica Mendoza.
By the way, yeah.
Paige Halstead's had some of the great fans on all the great teams.
Yes.
At the World Series, and they'll have more on Monday. Honestly, they may just be tired of talking to us. Maybe that's why they're not responding.
I don't know why they're probably trying to talk to you. I don't know about talking to me.
Rightfully so. In fairness, rightfully so.
I know. I have heard through my various sources that go to NCAA, go to the NCAA softball Twitter/X account on Tuesday. There may be something going on with Michaela Chister and Jenna and Amanda Lorenz. I'm just saying.
Caitlin Dean, the nerds took Shelly to the parking lot. I hope not. We haven't confirmed nor deny any of that. I mean, I can't confirm nor deny that. That's the truth. I cannot confirm. Listen, I spoke to Jenna during the Florida-Alabama game, whatever, just because I knew my place. I wasn't going to bring it up during the game. I had some stuff to talk about. And we haven't heard from them since. And you know what? We're going to give them their space.
Yes. They need their space. I don't know if they need bail money, Rob.
Rob.
Hey, before
Rob, are you an Edmonton fan, Rob? Just out of curiosity, because I just found out the Edmonton Oilers replacing the Florida Panthers.
Yes.
In the Stanley Cup.
In spite of the fact they got outshot nearly 3-1 in Game 6 tonight.
And by the way, thank you to the National Hockey League and the National Basketball Association, who clearly heard me complain last year about the fact that the Stanley Cup final and the NBA Finals were going on at the same time as the World Series, which was very awkward and complicated for me and Vic. We're trying to balance watching the Heat in the finals while doing live shows. We don't have to worry about that this year because the finals don't start till Thursday. The Stanley Cup final don't start till next Saturday.
Yes.
Thank you. So thank you.
Yes.
See, we have a voice as we here on In the Circle.
We are the voice of the voiceless. And by the way, y'all, smash that like button if you want to see more of our content. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We appreciate all of y'all watching our live streams, especially when we stay up till about 12 o'clock in the morning, like we're doing right now.
Listen, this is early compared to some others in the past. That's not true. And then, again, we had an episode Saturday night. Karen Kumar, Miami of Ohio head coach. It's a name that's been floated. Rumor monger. Oh, you guys are really good with some of your names on the chat room. That's all.
Love y'all. We love y'all.
No, I'm not confirming and denying that's anything. But keep it here on In the Circle. We got the press conferences and everything. D1 softball will have coverage from Oklahoma City. More shows, content will be coming this week, as Vic has alluded to on that. Until then, thanks to Laura Trout, one of our favorites, associate head coach at Illinois, Bulldog great, for joining us on this show. Thanks to Vic for staying up with us. This is past his bedtime, folks. I mean, you don't stay up this late.
Hey, the Snoopy mug came into great work this evening.
And Rob's not a fan of any of the Canadian teams. So just because he's from Canada does not mean he roots for Canada in hockey. Good.
Hey, don't worry. They haven't had much to cheer about in terms of hockey since 1990.
Well, that better stay. That better stick around.
Hey, he's a Blackhawk fan. Chicago Blackhawk fan. How about that?
Him and CM Punk. All right, everybody. Enjoy it. We're down to the Final Four. Enjoy the Monday night games. We'll be tweeting during those games.
Yes, we will.
Definitely be keeping you updated on the rest of the content this week. Yeah, you're going to hear from us. And we got some.
Oh, yeah, you will. You just don't know when, but you'll be hearing from us.
Very good. That's Vic. I'm Eric. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of In the Circle Live After Dark here on D1 Softball, here on their YouTube channel. Good night, everybody.
Top podcast is out. Good night, Canada.